Hello, I'm Ivy and I'll be reading you chapter 1 of Coraline from Neil Gaiman. Okay, chapter 1. Coraline discovered the door a little while after they moved into the house. It was a very old house. It had an attic under the roof and a cellar under the ground and an overgrown garden with huge trees in it. Coraline's family did not own all of the house. It was too big for that. Instead, they owned a part of it. There were other people who lived in the old house. Mrs. Spinks and Mrs. Forcible lived in the flat below Coraline's on the ground floor. They were both old and round, and they lived in their flat with a number of aging Highland Terriers who had names like Hamish and Andrew and Jock. Once upon a time, Mrs. Spinks and Mrs. Forcible had been actresses, as Mrs. Spinks told Coraline the first time she met her. "You see, Caroline," Mrs. Spinks said, getting Coraline's name wrong, "both myself and Miss Forcible were famous actresses in our time. We trotted the boards lovey. Oh, don't let Hamish eat the fruitcake, or he'll be up all night with his tummy." "It's Coraline, not Caroline." "Coraline," said Coraline. In the flat above Coraline's, under the roof, was a crazy old man with a big mustache. He told Coraline that he was training a mouse circus, and he wouldn't let anyone see it. One day, little Coraline, when they were all ready, "Everyone in the whole world will see the wonders of a mouse circus. You ask me why you cannot see it now. Is that what you asked me?" "No," said Coraline quietly. "I asked you to not call me Caroline. It's Coraline." "The reason you cannot see the mouse circus," said the man upstairs, "is that the mice are not ready and rehearsed. Also, they refuse to play the songs I have written for them. All the songs I have written for the mice to play go oompa oompa, but the white mice will only play toodle oodle, like that. I'm thinking of trying them on a different type of cheese." Coraline didn't think there was really a mouse circus. She thought the old man was probably making it up. The day after they moved in, Coraline went exploring. She explored the garden. It was a big garden. At the end was the old tennis court, but no one in the house played tennis, and the fences around the court had holes in it, and the nest had almost rotted away. There was an old rose garden filled with stunted, fly-blown rose bushes. There was a rockery that was all rocks, and there was a fairy ring made of squiddy brown toadstools which smelled dreadful if you accidentally trod on them. There was also a well. On the first day Coraline's family moved in, Mrs. Spinks and Mrs. Forcible made a point of telling Coraline how dangerous the well was, and they warned her to make sure she kept away from it. So Coraline set off to explore for it so that she knew where it was to keep away from it properly. She found it on the third day in an overgrown meadow beside the tennis court behind a clump of trees, a low brick circle almost hidden in the high grass. The well had been covered up by wooden boards to stop anyone from falling in. There was a small knot hole in one of the boards, and Coraline spent an afternoon dropping pebbles and acorns through the hole, waiting and counting until she heard the plop as they hit the water far below. Coraline also explored for animals. She found a hedgehog and a snakeskin, but no snake, and a rock that looked like a frog, and a toad that looked just like a rock. There was a haughty black cat who sat on walls and tree stumps and watched her, but slipped away if she ever went over to try to play with it. That was how she spent her first 2 weeks in the house, exploring the gardens and the grounds. Her mom made her come back inside for dinner and for lunch, and Coraline had to make sure she dressed up warm before she went out, for it was a very cold summer that year. But go out she did, exploring every day until the day it rained, when Coraline had to stay inside. "What should I do?" asked Coraline. "Read a book," said her mother. "Watch a video. Go play with your toys. Go pester Mrs. Spinks or Mrs. Forcible or the crazy man upstairs." "No," Coraline said. "I don't want to do those things. I want to explore." "I don't really mind what you do," said Coraline's mother, "as long as you don't make a mess." Coraline went over to the window and watched the rain come down. It wasn't the kind of rain you could go out in. It was the other kind, the kind that threw itself down from the sky and splashed where it landed. It was the rain that meant business, and currently its business was turning the garden into a muddy wet soup. Coraline watched all the videos. Coraline had watched all the videos, she was bored with her toys, and she read all her books. Coraline turned on the television, and she went from channel to channel to channel, but there was nothing on but men in suits talking about stock markets and talk shows. Eventually, she found something to watch. It was the last half of a natural history program about something called protective coloration. She watched animals and birds and insects which disguised themselves as leaves or twigs or other animals to escape from things that could hurt them. She enjoyed it, but it ended too soon, and was followed about another program for a cake factory. It was time to talk to her father. Coraline's father was home. Both their parents worked doing things on computers, which meant that they were home a lot of the times. Each one of them had their own study. "Hello, Coraline," he said when she came in, without turning around. Said Coraline. "It's raining." "Yup," said her father. "It's bucketing down." "No," said Coraline. "It's just raining. Can I go outside?" "What does your mother say?" "She says you're not going out in a weather like this, Coraline Jones." "Then no." "But I want to carry on exploring." "Then explore the flat," suggested her father. "Look, here's a piece of paper and pen. Count all the doors and windows. List everything blue. On an expedition to discover the hot water tank, and leave me alone to work." "Can I go into the drawing room?" The drawing room was where the Jones kept the expensive and uncomfortable furniture Coraline's grandmother had left them when she died. Coraline wasn't allowed in there, nobody went in there, and it was only for the best. "If you don't make a mess, then don't touch anything." Coraline considered carefully, and then she took the paper and pen and went off to explore the inside of the flat. She discovered the hot water tank. It was in a cupboard in the kitchen. She counted everything blue, 153. She counted the windows, 21. She counted the doors, 14. Of all the doors she found, 13 opened and closed. The big carved brown wooden door at the far corner of the drawing room, was locked. She said to her mother, "Where does that door go?" "Nowhere, dear. It has to go somewhere." Her mother shook her head. "Look," she told Coraline. She reached up and took a string of keys from the kitchen door frame. She sorted through them carefully and selected the oldest, biggest, blackest, rustiest key. They were in the drawing room. She locked the door with a key. The door swung open. Her mom was right. The door didn't go anywhere. It opened to a brick wall. "When this place was just a house," said Coraline's mother, "that door went somewhere. When they turned the house into flats, they simply bricked it up. The other side is the empty flat on the other side of the house, the one that is still for sale." She shut the door and pulled a string of keys back on top of the kitchen door frame. "You didn't lock it," said Coraline. Her mother shrugged. "Why should I lock it? It doesn't go anywhere." Coraline didn't say anything. It was nearly dark outside now, and the rain was still coming down, pattering against the windows and blurring the lights of the cars on the street outside. Coraline's mother stopped working and made them all dinner. Coraline was disgusted. "Daddy," she said, "you made a recipe again." "It's leek and potato stew with a tarragon garnish melted with Gruyere cheese," he admitted. Coraline sighed. Then she went to the freezer and got out some microwave chips and microwave mini pizza. "You know I don't like recipes," she told her father, while her dinner went around and around, and the little red numbers on the microwave oven counted down to 0. "If you ever tried, maybe you'll like it," said Coraline's father, but she shook her head. That night, Coraline laid awake in her bed. The rain had stopped, and she was almost asleep when something went tut-tut-tut-tut. She sat up in bed, and something went creak. Coraline got out of bed and looked down in the hall, but saw nothing strange. She walked down the hall from her parents' bedroom. Came a low snoring that was her father, and occasional sleep muttered that was her mother. Coraline wondered if she had dreamed, whatever it was. Something moved. It was little more than a shadow, and scuttled down the darkened hall fast, like a little patch of light. She hoped it wasn't a spider. Spiders made Coraline intensely uncomfortable. Black shape went to the drawing room, and Coraline followed it a little nervously. The room was dark. The only light came from the hall, and Coraline, who was sitting in the doorway, casted a huge distorted shadow onto the drawing room carpet. She looked like a thin, giant woman. Coraline was wondering whether or not she ought to turn on the lights when she saw the black-shaped edge out slowly from beneath the sofa. It paused and then dashed silently across the carpet towards the farthest corner of the room. There was no furniture in that corner. Coraline turned on the lights. There was nothing in the corner. Nothing but the old door that opened onto a brick wall. She was sure that her mother had shut the door, but now it was ever so slightly open, just a crack. Coraline went over to it and looked inside. There was nothing there, just a wall built of red bricks. Coraline closed the wooden door and turned on the lights and went to bed. She dreamed of the black shapes that slid from place to place avoiding light until they were all gathered together under the moon. Little black shapes with red eyes and sharp yellow teeth. They started to sing. They were small. We are small, but we are many. We are many, but we are small. We were here before you rose. We will be here when you fall. Their voices were high and whispering, and slightly whiny. They made Coraline feel uncomfortable. Then Coraline dreamed of a few commercials, and after that she dreamed of nothing.